with that said, I want to start this show, and I want to start with Mike Tylick. Mike, welcome.
One thing I used to see when I was a kid with model railroaders was what I call shared industries. Like somebody would have a coal mine and a power plant on the same railroad, or a logging layout, a sawmill, and a lumber yard in the same, and things would go between one and the other. Now, in real life, that doesn't happen much. Things go hundreds and hundreds of miles, but this is our Chester and Becket. It's a F-scale railroad, portable railroad I built with a number of friends. And this has a lot of shared industries for a tiny thing. This, by the way, I want to talk about this just a sec. This is a thing on panoramic maps. They're found on the internet, and they have these wonderful drawings that they did back probably in the 19th century. Now, and they have all places all over the place. Now, one of our shared industries is logging. I mean, everybody has logging, but we made this sawmill. One thing I built, which was really neat, is this stalk cutter. My friend Steve Morrow found this on the internet, and it's sort of like a little gasoline-powered, really heavy-duty cutter. And I built a model of that, and these are pictures of our logs. By the way, these dramatic skies are all real. And of course, it goes to a lumber yard, which is a sawmill, which you don't find much in real life. But this kind of stuff did exist in Chester, Massachusetts. Chester, just for the sake of the record, is about 25 miles west of Springfield. And the Chester and Becket was a real railroad. It was actually narrow gauge. It ended about 1929, and it dealt with lumber and other things. But there is a Banish lumber that's still in business. My friend Steve made this nice sign, Steve Morrow, and that was done. That was a 3D printed sign. We made decals using the highball graphics things, and Steve made this nice Jill poke, which I never heard of. I mean, Jill's kind of a mean girl because she takes these log cars and dumps the logs off into the water. So that's one part of the industry. And let me see if I press the space bar. I'll get the hang of this now. And here's the sawmill. Now, Steve somewhere, I don't know where he found this. He searches the internet. Someone makes a really nice F-scale, half-inch scale, G-scale sawmill. Probably cost him a fortune, but it's beautiful. And he built a sawmill. We built a building around it. And Steve's very clean, so it looks clean. And the final product, since we don't have much room, there's the Banish lumber yard. Now, we couldn't put the lumber storage place next to the mill, so our fantasy is we take the lumber, you put it on flat cars, and then you put it in the mill. We only had about an inch and a half for the lumber mill, so it's one of those ones where it has doors that close. This, by the way, on the right, that Banish lumber, that's a common thing I've seen in lumber yards, where the track side has these little doors where people would load lumber from cars into the back, and then the front would be the traditional open yard where people would buy lumber. But that's one of our paired industries. By the way, the real Banish deals in specialty hardwoods now, and they're still in business. Now, another thing that everybody has on their narrow gauge railroad is mining, but we wanted to be a little different. So one thing they mined in Chester, two things they mined in Chester was carborundum for sandpaper and things like that. That was a going industry in the early part of the 20th century. And another thing they mined was micarta. And that used to be used, I've told, for windows for wood stoves. And up until the end of World War II, it was used for insulation. Now, if you look carefully, there's our mine entrance. There's a little sign, and here's an entrance with a train coming out, much bigger. And we didn't have much room, so we made a little mine entrance. And that's our other paired industry. Now, here's the inside of the mine. One idea we got from, actually, I got this from Lynn Westcott with his 101 track plans, where you have cutaways where you see into things. So if you look carefully around the edges, that's the fascia board, and we cut out, and in there there's a little mine, and we found a guide. The cars are from Railway Design Associates. They're actually O scale ore cars, and we scratch built the little plunger and the dynamite sticks and the lanterns. Steve found those from miniature. When you go into dollhouse miniatures, there's a half-inch scale dollhouse stuff, and they make lots and lots and lots of items. Most of those are for nice places, though. But you can get nice furniture and nice things. And he got the lanterns. So here we are in the mine. And that was kind of fun to build. Now, on the other end, we have the place where the mica, the carborundum's dumped. We don't have a good picture of this, but if you look at the building, the carborundum place, there are like little doors, and the train would go on the loading dock and dump it in here. It's not very well thought out, but I don't have good photographs, so I'm doing the best I can with that. By the way, Steve Scratch built this neat little coal chute out of brass. You know, he does remarkable things with brass, and it looks like it would work, but it looks like it would work, but it doesn't. But that's another one of our paired industries is the mica mine and the carborundum mine. By the way, the carborundum until the 90s, the carborundum business was still growing strong in Chester, and there still are evidences of it. You know, some of this stuff is still around, although it's a great deal now. The real showpieces are Quarry, you know, and if you went to Chester today, there's a Chester group called Chester on Track, and they have tours of the quarry just about now, like actually the weekend before this, the weekend before Father's Day, they have tours of the remaining stone quarry, and they take you on all sorts of things in Chester to see what's going on. But we built this quarry for the railroad. Now, again, my friend Steve, who loves this mechanical stuff, built this pole crane. And he found, I hate to say he found the website. I don't know where the website is, but he found all these miniature industrial parts for the pulleys and things. And the crane actually operates, although we just leave it there and don't operate it. And he made the stones. The stones are remarkable because they look nice. All he really did was take styrofoam and paint it with sealing paint and washed it with India ink and dust some stone dust on it. But they look really good. Now, the foreground ones, we decided to bring it out in the fascia board. The lower ones, the ones in the lower part of the picture, those are actually wood. They don't look as good, but we figured we had to make them out of wood just for plain durability, because it's a portable railroad. It's like a beast to carry. It's 6 2x8 pieces, and it takes a crew of about 4 to move each piece. But we do bring it to the Big Railroad Hobby Show in Springfield every February, and it looks like it. We went to the large scale show in Springfield last month. I think it may be on permanent display there. It'll be seen again. But we did do the quarry stones, and here's some close-ups. Now, one of the neat things about F scale, by the way, for those of you who are not familiar, F scale is nominally the LGBG scale, which runs on the standard gauge 1 and 5/8 track. It is a scale that Bachmann has popularized. It's basically the track is 3-foot gauge, and it's some oddball dimension like 122 to 122.5 to 1, or some number nobody can figure out. But they do sell scale rulers. A company named Rulers of the World sells rulers in all scales. Now, one thing Steve had me build are these stone drills, and he finds these pictures on the internet, and I somehow cobbled up these things out of styrene. These are fairly close approximation of real drills you would use to drill in quarries, and what they would drill and then load dynamite in there, because this is 20th century. They didn't deal with black powder, did no dynamite and even nitroglycerin, and blast it and take seams, and it's quite an industry. Steve's family owns an undertaker shop, and he spent a lot of the time in his youth going up to Rock of Ages in Vermont, which, by the way, is a beautiful trip. It's a place that makes gravestones, which is really depressing, but they have a neat tour. And he's all familiar with this. Now, this is on the left there. This still exists in Chester. It's the stone saw. They used to cut mostly curbstones. Now, the way the stone saw works, it's actually a shot saw, which means that these little slots take buckshot, and the buckshot is actually the cutting edge. And they use water as a lubricant. And as the buckshot thins, it goes down and gets recycled. The new buckshot is added. And somehow they cut stones like that. It's amazing they can do it. But then I guess the Romans and Greeks did it somehow with hand tools. This is a model. It's a very close model of the real stone saw in Chester. However, the building is a complete fantasy. If you look at the panoramic maps, the stone cutter is in a wooden building and you don't see nothing. But I decided we looked up on the internet. I love the internet. The internet can do all this fast research for model building. You can find stuff that's, unless you're a real fanatic for accuracy, you can find stuff that satisfies our urges in 5 minutes. But this is like a 1920s type shed design that was built mostly for the oil business. So we built a modern building. One thing I like about, one thing I don't like about narrow gauge is so much of it is kind of the same stuff. And I kind of like making things that are different. Like I like adding modern elements. I like adding poured concrete. I like adding steel structures. But here's a picture of Steve's industry. And that would be probably our third industry. And if I'm right, that's the end of what I have to say. And this is the Chester and Becket. And I'll end by saying that Chester and Becket was a real railroad. It fed into the Boston, Albany, New York Central, and it closed in 1929. Much of the right of way is still there. And I hope I kept within my 15 minutes. Knowing the way I talk, I probably talked about 5.
You did great. Thank you so much, and looking forward to seeing you.
You always know what to say, and thank you too.